everyone. Gabriel Joy here, and I'm here today with my sister, Sasha. Say hi, Sasha.
Hello.
Sasha is a super prolific filmmaker and visual artist. She's a dancer, an actress, and she's also in art school, just like me. Very fun. Is there anything I missed? Introduce yourself. What do you do, Sasha?
I don't know. I consider myself like multidisciplinary because I have too many interests. So I also dance, and I also draw, and I also write. And I do whatever gets my brain dopamine filled, you know?
Yeah, I get that. That's so hype.
1,000 different mediums. And that's fine because you don't have to choose one thing. Just saying.
Yeah, absolutely. What was that like part of the journey of just like, I don't know which art medium to do, but just deciding to do kind of all of it, or like mixing it together, I guess you could say.
Yeah, because I was like so obsessed with like feeling like I needed to choose one thing that I was like actually like genuinely miserable. But I was like so addicted to social media, and I was consuming people that had like, you know, excelled in like one or two things, and I was like, that's just not me. I just don't. There might be one season of my life where I'm very like into one thing, and then another season where I'm really into something else, but that's fine. But I was like, it's not practical for me to choose one thing.
Yeah.
So I wish I would have known that back in the day, but that's okay. It's fine.
Yeah. What matters is here and now, right? Like, I also feel that so hard. Or like, I really wanted to do animation. I really wanted to do film. And I was like, comics are pretty cool. Writing's pretty cool too. Screenwriting. So I just kind of mixed it all together. I think it's what's the phrase? It's jack of all trades, master of none. But it's better than a master of one, I think.
I've never heard that before in my life. Good.
Yeah. I don't know. Okay, right. It's a saying. Anyway, that's awesome. Yeah, we're kind of getting into things already, but kind of why I brought you here today is because something that's been on my mind recently is self-confidence, specifically building self-confidence as an artist. It's easy to feel like earlier on in your art career or in your practice to feel that your stuff or your the mediums that you work in are not up to snuff or as good as they could be, and that can sometimes be a roadblock in stopping you from making things. Even when creating this YouTube channel, I was kind of like, I don't think this is going to be very good, so I'm not going to make it. And then I went on a beautiful walk last week and decided, wow, that's going to kind of stop me from making things. So I was like, oh, I know someone who's really, I feel like has really high artist self-confidence. I was like, oh, Sasha has really, I don't know, this ability to just create things without feeling like something is holding you back from it, but maybe not. I'm curious, like maybe talking about artist self-confidence, or you know, if it's something you relate to. That's a big question, and you can start wherever you want with that. But yeah,
I think so. I'm very familiar with the like, I have all these ideas, and then, or I have this grand idea, and then you're like, oh wait, like I can't pull this off, you know? And then you never start, or you get intimidated by your own ideas and stuff. Like I get intimidated by the execution part. So I can have all these wild, wonderful ideas or whatever, and then when I get to the part where I'm like, okay, let's like do the thing, I'm like, that's scary, so let me just pass. and that was like, that was something that like I was struggling with so much. And I don't think anyone knew that either, because I would just kind of play it off as like, oh, like I had a technical issue and I had to resort to this instead. But like last year, like when I was a sophomore, I would have like a certain amount of time to do something, and then I would be like, I'm gonna do this. This is what I'm gonna do. And then there would always be a point where I'd be like, okay, this is hard now. Now this is getting hard. So then I would resort to something simpler. It's so complex too, because sometimes there were parts of that was like, okay, I have self-doubt. Like, let's dive into this. Like, why am I doubting myself? And then other parts of it was like, you need to plan better. Because, oh, like I can do this thing. I can make this thing, but am I giving myself enough time to execute it to its fullest potential?
And that's cool, because I feel like even when I was an undergrad, like I think that was actually a really great lesson of just like, it's not just the finished product, it's like it's the process, and it's very important to trust the process, because otherwise you might not get anything out of it. It might not be what you set out to create, but along the way, if you hit these like roadblocks, this self-doubt, or this, oh, this isn't exactly, or what are you saying, like executing an idea, and it's like, oh, I have to go about this a different way because this plan isn't going to work the way I think it's going to work. That's just part of the process. And then you take that, you can move that into whatever other thing, the other next project that you're going to work on. Are there any like projects that you can think of, like that you worked on that kind of went through that, where you're like, oh man, this isn't going to work the way I thought it was going to work?
Every single one, like every single, especially in filmmaking, because like filmmaking is still like new to me, because I chose filmmaking and I had like never picked up a camera. But totally. Like I would often find myself like in positions where I'm like, okay, maybe like this, I have this whole plan, or I have this all laid out, and then I'm like, this isn't like, it's not giving, like, like
it's not giving.
It's not doing it for me, or especially like if there's something I'm trying to express or convey, or I guess say through my work, and I get to a point where I'm shooting and I'm like, this is not doing that thing that I'm trying to say justice, then I will be like, well, yes, I have to like expand my ways of thinking, but like it's impossible for that like not to happen. And I think I cannot imagine like somebody being like, yeah, this is exactly how I pictured this is going to be, because it's not. When you start filming, it's like, oh, and then sometimes you're like, whoa, that's cool, or I like that corner of the room over there, like let's try this over there, like, you know, it's just, I don't think you should have such a fixed approach to everything.
Totally.
Like, don't go into it with no idea. I mean, well, no, you can do that. Improv is great. We love that. But you know, if it's an assignment or something, like don't just go into it like being like, I don't know, but go and like give yourself like a good amount of freedom and structure.
Yeah, it's like give yourself like enough space and enough room to play, so you're not feeling super rigid, I guess.
Then I'm just not even making anything because I'm like, this isn't perfect. And that's what social media messed me up, like in a way, because I was like, all I was looking at was people's finished products. I was very rarely consuming like the process, and also about confidence or whatever. Like everybody's process looks different, and it's not supposed to be glamorous. And if you see somebody's process and you're like, that's really glamorous and hot, like I want to be that cool when I'm no, because everybody's process, you also will figure out over time. I like to call it, because my I had a wonderful professor who said this, but she called it like your method of making, like discovering your method. And that's not just like one sentence, but like there's parts of like, for me, like I like to word vomit at the very beginning, like where I just write words and phrases and sentences, and then I sort of like, you know, pick and choose things that stand out to me just because, you know, and so everybody's process is different. There's no right or wrong way to do a process.
That's awesome. Getting into social media there too is really interesting, because you're right. Most of the time, we really only see finished products, and that comparison can be very sometimes detrimental, I think, to artists in our little generation, especially on the Instagram and TikToks. Part of me likes it when artists like post stuff on Instagram about their process, and you kind of see like, you know, how things came to be and the mess, I guess, that is behind the thing that looks really, really perfect. And embracing that is just so incredibly important. How do you protect yourself on social media spheres, or do you try to
I don't.
your brain?
I just like to put my phone down. I mean, like, especially I at this point in time, like I'm consuming a lot more of a variety of information than I was, because I was like, for a long time, all I was looking at was like art and like people's, you know, these professional artists and fashion designers and all of this. And now I'm kind of like just sort of looking at brain rot content. But for me, like, I think social media affects more so of like how I feel about myself personally than it does my art anymore or nowadays. And so sometimes I just have to be like, you're only seeing highlights. You're only seeing highlights. All you're seeing is highlights of people's lives. Like sometimes I know there's an exception. People are, posting themselves at low points, which I have opinions about, but that's a whole other discussion. But I think like reminding myself that you can curate your image that you're showing to people, and so I'm like, I'm not just watching someone in their studio 24/7. Like I'm only watching the things that they're picking and choosing to post. So I think reminding myself of that, because I don't know, I used to get like comments sometimes, not on Instagram, but just like in real life. I used to talk about how much like I struggle academically, and I'm like, gosh, like I'm so disorganized and I'm a mess. And people will be like, really? Like I don't expect that at all. Like you look so put together, and I'm like, oh, interesting. So see, that's the same thing, because I'm like, I'm picking and choosing what I want to show to people in real life too,
Right.
So
yeah, that's so fair. I feel like I'm trying to embrace this idea of like speaking in first draft to make editing easier, but also to make my video creation process a little easier. But yeah, we're always putting on little filters, I feel like. But yeah, it's kind of like just understanding that while you're consuming media can be very helpful, I think.
Yes, because it's like you can literally be like, it's almost like delusional sometimes, and I'll be like, God, she's so pretty, and like it's just not fair that she, like, oh my gosh, like that's delusional. Like that way. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be harsh, but like it genuinely is delusional because it's an illusion. We're creating illusions. So, and the same thing goes for art. So, but I can talk about it for 8 hours literally, because it's just like the bane of my existence, to be honest, because it just does more harm for me to me than good. I have to have it because
yeah, I mean, so many people like have asked me over the years at like undergrads, like younger classmen, being like, do I have to get social media to like be a successful artist? And it's like, no, you don't. That's one way to measure success, is through followers and likes, but it's not necessarily the only way.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think like the most important thing that you should be doing is networking with people in real life. And I understand that sometimes that starts with social media, which is fine because it does for me a lot of the time. But I have been networking with people in real life, like face to face, more than I ever have my entire life, and it's insane. It's terrifying because I'm like, I don't know what people are gonna think of me. Who cares? Okay, but it's so invigorating and wonderful, and I'm like making connections and making friends too. I appreciate social media for that factor that it can start there a lot of the time. And then I'm like, okay, let's meet up for coffee. Like, and we do.
Yeah, that's why I said up and coming comic artists all the time. Like, literally go to your local comic book stores, go to the events, go to the cons. Like, that's where you're gonna meet people. I will say this though, like, how do you feel being in like real life social settings? Like, how do you like get out of your like shell or something to talk to people? I feel like you're a very extroverted person now. I used to be a little more introverted, I feel like. And it was harder, but like, what do you think about that?
I hate to say this, but sometimes I have to make sure I'm caffeinated.
Yeah, caffeine.
I meet people for coffee sometimes because I'm just like, I know I'm like more likely to not be disassociated. but no, on a serious note, like we're all artists. Like most of the people I'm meeting up with are all artists, and everyone is insecure. Okay, everyone is insecure. Nobody's gonna come up to you and tell you that they're insecure, but we're all kind of doing our best, and I just kind of like to think of it that way. And like, I don't think you have to be extroverted. I can only really speak for myself on all of this, obviously, but like I can pretend to be extroverted, but also like asking people questions I think is really important too. Like, and it's hard for me because I mean, I get it. Like I have to do like mental math in my head. Like that's how socializing feels. I'm like, am I making enough eye contact? Am I making too much eye contact? Anyway, but I think like asking people questions, getting out of your head, and like sparking an interest and a curiosity in the person that you're talking to. There's like events for networking and stuff, like especially in like marketing and advertising and stuff, and it's always like it's so stressful. I don't like those. It's usually like a room full of a bunch of people drinking beer and like talking, and I can't hear myself talk. I don't like settings like that. That's totally okay. I went to one of those and I was like, I'm never going to one of those again. That's fine. Like if connecting with people one-on-one works better for you, that's fine. That's not going to limit you in any way. Works better for me.
Yeah, I remember in high school I was like following, awesome authors on YouTube and some comic artists on YouTube, and I was like, I'm just gonna ask them a question, see what happens. They might not answer, and sometimes they do, and you're like, oh my gosh, there's a little connection. Networking can look very different, across all kinds of different places. Yeah, here's another thing I was just thinking about is like another thing that has helped me kind of build my artist self-confidence, I think, is validation from people who aren't not necessarily people on social media, but just like mentors that I've had, like professors and other older students. I feel like over time who've said like, wow, your art is really cool, and I'm like, it is? Oh my gosh, really? And I feel like that's a really big part of it. And when you're talking about networking and talking about the questions that you're asking people, I just think like, what are the questions that you want to be asked about your art? Like what are the things that you're interested in? Turns out other people are probably interested in the exact same things.
Kind of crazy. I think also too, like when it comes to validation, like yes, validation is fueling, but I can't rely on that to fuel me to make stuff. Because unfortunately I lived a very sad era of my life where that's all I like. The only thing that drove me to make anything was validation. Yes.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I think understanding that can't be your only source of fuel. And it's like validation is like a little cherry on top. Like yes, validation.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of reminds me too of just like that little piece of advice of make art for yourself first and nobody else.
And like give yourself time to play in your room. Like make yourself a playpen. Okay, your studio space, but like give yourself time to play and make things out of the spotlight that you're not trying to make money off of, or you're not, because then it's like that's what we used to do when we were kids. I would just find things like just little pieces of foam and paper, and I would like plug in the hot glue gun, which I think is insane because I was like 7. And I would just glue little things together, and it just was like I was like, yay! I made a thing. Like, like it was not until I think people started telling me that you're good at this, not gluing things together, drawing. People started telling me like, oh, you have potential, blah, blah, blah. That's when it started getting stressful because I was like,
no, that's good. That's also excellent advice of just like, you don't have to share everything that you make. And sometimes the stuff that you make by yourself and don't tell anyone is stuff that can help fuel you in the rest of your process and creation. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, is there anything else you want to share? I mean, my only other thing I kind of wanted to add is just like I'm embracing this idea this month. As of recording this, it's Pisces season. So I'm trying to embrace going with the flow of things and just going for it, just doing it and trying to not, stop yourself, psych yourself out from making the thing that you really want to make.
I tell myself like, it is not that deep. Like, calm down.
Yeah.
End of the day, but I mean that in a positive way. Like,
absolutely.
The meme of the two, like the one guy looking out the window and the other guy looking out the window, right, or on the bus. Like, it's not that deep. Anyway,
that's excellent. It's been great having you on. Hopefully we can bring you on again soon. First, what are you working on right now? And where can people find you if they want to find you?
Right now I'm working on my junior thesis, which is a film. It's a dance film. Anyway, you can find me on social media. Oh, on Instagram at sashalouisereid.
Cool. Give her a follow. Thanks again, Sasha, for jumping on. I appreciate it. Stay smart, keep it fun. See you in the next one. Bye.